Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, classmates. I'm Kurt Russell Pabustan, one of the discussant for tonight, and I will discuss the last two principles of second language acquisition relevant to the development of materials for teaching of languages by Tomlinson. Materials should not rely too much on controlled practice. When we say controlled practice, it is a stage in a lesson where learners practice new language in a limited form. It can be compared to free practice, which involves learner producing language using target content freely. The teacher has shown the learners the form and use of the past-passive form. This principle is intended to state that it is still controversial to say that controlled practice activities are valuable. The statements which state that most spontaneous performance is attained by dint of practice, that is according to Sherwood-Smith 1981, and the automaticity is achieved through practice have no evidence, that is according to Bayeux-Woolstock 1988. However, in the absence of any compelling evidence, many researchers agree with Ellis, saying that controlled practice appears to have little long-term effect on the accuracy with which new structures are performed, and has little effect on fluency, that is according to Ellis and Rathbone 1987. Yet controlled grammar practice activities still feature significantly in popular course books and are considered to be useful by many teachers and by many learners. This is especially true with conversation practice, which has been widely used in numerous techniques for the past 30 years despite the lack of meaningful empirical evidence to back it up. In the recent review of new low-level course books, Tomlinson discovered that 9 out of 10 of them provide far more possibilities for controlled practice than for language use. It's possible that students are spending their time doing drills and listening to and repeating dialogues right now all around the world. Next is the materials should provide opportunities for outcome feedback. Feedback which is focused first on the effectiveness of the outcome rather than just on the accuracy of the output can lead to output becoming a repeatable source of input. To put it in another way, if the learner's language is evaluated in connection to the reason for which it is employed, it can become useful and valuable source of information regarding language use. As a result, a learner who is successful in achieving a specific communicative goal will receive positive feedback about the language's effectiveness for future language outcomes. In relation to this, materials developer has to be sure that language production activities have intended outcomes other than just practicing language. Thus, a learner who fails to achieve a particular communicative purpose, for example, borrowing something, instructing someone how to play a game, and persuading someone to do something, is more likely to gain from feedback on the effectiveness of their use of language than a learner whose language is corrected without reference to any non-linguistic outcome. It is important, therefore, for material developers to make sure that language production activities have intended outcome other than just practicing language. The value of outcome feedback is focused on by such writers on task-based approaches as Willis and Willis 2007. To sum up my report, materials should not rely too much on controlled practice, which means they should focus on the language use itself. Controlled practice activities are those in which students are asked to use the language in a stricted way, meaning the learners use the language that has just been presented and there is a little room for personalization and there is no actual use of the language. The main aim of controlled practice is to help learners automatize the form of target language, and this can be done orally or in the written form, like multiple choice activities and categorizing words into groups. The material should not rely too much on controlled practice because it is still lacking of meaningful empirical evidence to back it up. Materials should provide opportunities for outcome feedback, especially feedback on the effectiveness of the use of language rather than accuracy of language. It is very important, therefore, for materials developers to make sure that language production activities have intended outcomes other than just practicing language. If the learner's language is evaluated in connection to the reason for which it is employed, it can become useful and valuable source of information regarding language use. Therefore, a learner who is successful in achieving a specific communicative goal will receive positive feedback about the language's effectiveness for future language outcomes. That's all my report. Thank you for listening.